The following program is brought to you by Jack Miller.
It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
When the earth was created, the word came down. Take this world and turn it around.
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Miller, a super excited Jack Miller today with my buddy Todd Cohen. Todd, how you doing?
I am doing much better, thank you, and I am so excited about our guest today. I can't even believe it.
I know. We have Susan Bennett, who is Susan, who's literally, I think, the most seriously,
no pun intended,
who I think is the most famous voice in the country. What do you think about that?
Let me ask you a question. Do you use Siri regularly?
I'm embarrassed. Don't ask me that when we're having her.
Do you have an iPhone?
I do, and I'm addicted to my iPhone.
Here's the thing. I have some people that I know who use Siri for everything. I mean, they're so reliant on Siri that basically she does everything for them except, like, pull up their fly after they take a leak, for instance. I have other people who don't even know how to get Siri on their phone. I'm probably somewhere toward that extreme. I probably have used Siri 3 or 4 times, except when those like national sort of social network things say, ask her this, and you'll get like the funniest responses. But other than that,
I have friends, and a few of the girls who are out here tell me that, like, what they do is they ask her stupid questions. Not her. They ask the computer stupid questions to see what she'll say.
Right.
One of them actually said, come ask her what she thinks when people ask her stupid questions. Anyway,
I'm excited.
Let's get Susan Bennett on the phone. Susan, you with us?
I am.
Susan, I so excited. I can't even tell you. Todd's excited, and I have to tell you, we're in this little broadcast booth. Todd, turn around. There's like 5 or 6 people who are staring at us. They're waving at me. Usually they ignore me, Susan.
We're in a people aquarium.
Yeah, usually they don't care. They want me to get out of the studio as fast as I can. But they're excited. So thank you for taking your time to be on our show today. We're super excited.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
So maybe let's start. I mean, I've spoken to you. I've read your bio. But why don't you start by giving us some of your background and how you got everyone. You're, I guess, the most famous, most heard voice in America, maybe the world. How did you get that gig? And what tell us what transpired.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't know. It's a mystery. I don't know to this day who actually chose my voice to be the original voice of Siri. But the process all started in 2005 when I was working, and I still work, for this company that does a lot of messaging. And they were they had a liaison project with a company called ScanSoft that became Nuance, the biggest text-to-speech company in the world. And so we were doing these crazy recordings, just thousands of phrases and sentences that were created just to get all the sound combinations in the language. And it was kind of an interesting thing because it was very, this was a first time that I'd done something like this. It was kind of fascinating. And so we did all those recordings, and then 6 years later, boom, there was Siri, October 4th, 2011, without, my knowledge. So
Wow.
They had used those original recordings and extracted sounds from the recordings, which is called concatenation, and they had reformed new sentences and put those in the devices, and that's how Siri was created.
So you recorded just a bunch of random words, phrases, sentences.
Oh, they were not random at all.
No, but they told you what to say, and then 6 years later they put you on.
Well, during those 6 years, they were going through this process of concatenation, which is very complicated. They would have to go through all of the recordings and extract sounds and syllables and reform all of those sounds into new phrases. And so basically it's the programmers and the technicians and the computers that do all this. I basically provided the voice, and that's it. Everything else was done by the scientists. And actually, the programmers are the ones that come up with Siri's responses.
Wow. So it's said, I guess semi-famously, that Apple has never confirmed or denied that you are, in fact, the voice, but that forensic like voice recognition software has determined pretty much with 100% confidence that it is in fact you.
No, it was a real guy, and he was a forensic audiologist that CNN had hired because they wanted to make sure that I was the voice. And the only confirmation I had from Apple was I was at a tech conference in 2013, and I was basically acknowledged by Steve Wozniak. If you don't know who Steve is, he was Steve Jobs' partner and basically the man who built the first Apple computer. So.
Wow.
And by the way, from all accounts, a heck of a nice guy.
So
he's fabulous. He's fabulous. He's a very, very sweet person, very open and helpful to young people trying to get into, technology, and he's wonderful. He's very much into education. He's a great guy.
Were you happy or upset when you found out that your voice was being used in this way?
Well, what would you think?
No,
Suddenly, I'm on millions and millions of devices and had absolutely no idea. So I really had ambivalent feelings. On the one hand, it was like, oh, wow, they chose my voice to be the North American, voice of Apple, which was very flattering. On the other hand, it was like, well, wait a minute. How did this happen? I didn't know about this. So, that was another issue.
Susan,
it was pretty weird.
How did you find out? Because I heard kind of a crazy story. I don't know if it's true or not, that they didn't tell you that a friend of yours called or something like that. And
yeah, a fellow voice actor emailed me on October 4th, 2011, and said, hey, we're playing around with this new iPhone. Isn't this you? And I went, what? So I went on the Apple site and listened and said, yep, that's me.
Now, do you guys all hang out, the voice actors, like the GPS voice and the answering machine voicemail voice and the movie phone voice?
Well,
do you guys?
No, in the past we used to. That's when we used to really interact with each other. But everyone has his or her own home studio now. So we're basically just sort of locked in a little padded room doing our thing.
Right.
Similar to you guys.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
The problem is I need a real padded room. Now, what I think a lot of people don't know, first of all, I want everyone who has an interest in Susan to go to SusanBennett.com.
Susan C. Bennett.
Oh, Susan, you're right, CBennett.com.
Yeah.
You can also follow Susan on Seriously Susan on Twitter. She has an unbelievably impressive resume of companies that she's done work for. Literally everything from Coke to McDonald's to AT&T to Ford to Delta. You're the voice of Delta.
Yeah, it's
Dell.
a who's who for the blue chippers.
Home Depot. Todd, I'm going to give you this. I can't even read all these names. It's literally everyone. You've done jingles. And I don't think people know that you're a singer. I'm going to say a beautiful singer. I've heard you sing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I started this whole business as a singer and actually got into voiceover accidentally. Back in the day when they used to do a lot of jingles with multiple singers, nowadays they just use one or two people in overdub. But in the past they would have four singers all together in a room singing, around the microphones and producing jingles. And one day during this process, the voice talent didn't show up. And so the owner of the studio, Pete Caldwell at Doppler Studios in Atlanta, said, Susan, you don't have an accent. Come over here and read this copy. And I thought, oh, all right. So I did it, and it was pretty easy. It came very easily to me. And so afterwards I found a great voice coach and got an agent, and that was many, many years ago. We won't say exactly how many.
Right.
I started when I was 2.
Yeah, like all of us. The older I get, but you have just a fantastic voice, and I would encourage anyone. You could get to her singing by going to SusanCBennett.com. So pretty fascinating.
And I guess there is no accent or affect to your voice. Is that what was so important in a lot of these jobs? Is that
yes, especially because when you consider, there are a lot of different aspects to voiceover. And for IVR, telephony, messaging, that sort of thing, informational voiceover work really requires a person who can be articulate and have very little regional accent, as neutral as possible. And the recordings were actually incredibly tedious. All of the sentences had to be read in the same way. The same pitch, the same pacing, the same tone, and that really gets old very fast.
Right. Now, did you see the movie I guess they sort of made about you, Her?
Yeah, it's definitely not about me. It's about, It's about a virtual assistant who's much more closer to artificial intelligence. Because the Scarlett Johansson character has emotions,
right?
And she's, she feels things. So that's way beyond what we have at this point in time. But I know that all the major corporations are really aiming for that, which is going to be very interesting because I don't know what all the 7 billion plus people in the world are going to do for a job.
Right.
Once all the machines know how to do everything. So.
Now, I think another pretty cool thing is that and maybe I'm wrong with this, I think your son is like a pretty famous photojournalist or photographer?
No, I wouldn't say he's famous. He's a photographer, and he also works with a fantastic social media company called Fanbase, and these folks have gotten me close to 900,000 followers so far, and which is an interesting thing. No, he's not what I would call famous, but he is a
rising star.
Son of Siri.
Son of Siri and a rising star. And you were married to an NFL player. Maybe you're
an NHL.
Oh, NHL. I'm sorry.
Hockey player, yes.
Hockey.
I'm
a
National
nerd.
Hockey League, yes. Kurt Bennett. He was the first American to score over 30 goals in 1 year in the NHL, so he's in the record books.
That's amazing.
You've lived a pretty cool life.
I really have, and during those years when I was married to Kurt, and he still remains a friend, we traveled a lot. At the end of each hockey season, they would withhold so much of your paycheck during the year. At the end, we would always get a chunk of money back, and we would always travel. And so, Kurt still is a very adventuresome person, and so, we traveled to Russia, we traveled to Brazil, we traveled to Africa. We went all over the world. So it was an interesting time.
Is it more of a charge to do a voiceover for like I think you're like the voice of Delta or you do the Delta.
Delta Airlines gates worldwide. Yeah. I'm the one that tells you are in zone 1.
Yeah,
wow.
That's pretty cool.
You did that great.
Yeah, she did. But is what's cool like on a day-to-day basis? I want to talk about compensation on the next segment because I think that's fascinating. But what's like cooler and which do you get more satisfaction out of doing that or like doing a live gig where you perform or sing a Karen Carpenter song?
Right. Well, they're so very different, but I really love both of them. And the nice thing about being in this business is that every day is different. Of course, that could be a negative, too. It's like, what? I have no jobs this week? But, every freelancer experiences that. But I find a lot of gratification in all of it. Certainly voiceover is easier in the sense that it's not as physically taxing or you don't have to do as much preparation as a live performance. And one of the easier things is that you get to read your copy. You don't have to memorize anything. So it's easier from that standpoint. But I really love both of those things.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, you're fantastic. I hate to cut you off because I have a ton more questions. We have to take a couple minutes to commercial breaks to pay the bills. Susan and everyone else, stick with us for about 3 minutes. We'll be back, and I have some really good questions. I think really good questions for Susan. And I want to find out how much money she's making. That's the real thing, Todd, right? Stick with us, everyone. We'll be right back.
Don't turn that dial. We will be right back.
Are you tired of dealing with unreliable banks and brokers who charge upfront fees and never deliver on their promises? You don't have to. Gelt Financial Corporation has been in business since 1989 and offers a stated income loan program for non-owner-occupied residential and commercial real estate investors. No tax returns required. What are you waiting for? Call Gelt Financial right now at 561-221-0900. Again, that's 561-221-0900. 561-221-0900.
Did you invest in a non-liquid real estate partnership? Do you want and need liquidity? There's finally an answer. Quick Liquidity is a direct buyer of real estate minority interest and tenants in common investments across the country. To find out if we would buy your non-liquid investment, call us at 561-221-0881 or visit us at quickliquidity.com. That's quickliquidity.com. If you're buying, selling, or investing in real estate, call attorney Dan Kaskow, 561-237-6822. Mr. Cascal is board certified by the Florida Bar as an expert in real estate law. He's been practicing law for more than 20 years and is a partner in the law firm of Sachs Kaplan with offices in Boca Raton and Tallahassee. Dan Cascal handles real estate, corporate, condominium, and homeowner association matters throughout Florida. From residential purchases and sales, bulk buying and selling of condominium units, to purchases and sales of commercial properties. Contact attorney Dan Cascal at 561-237-6822 for your real estate, corporate, and community association legal needs. Attorney Dan Cascal, 561-237-6822. Non-attorney spokesperson for attorney Dan Cascal.
For up-to-date news, the latest info, contests, and more, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at 880TheBiz.
Where money talks.
Welcome back to It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Call us at 305-541-2350. Follow us on Facebook at Jack Miller Down to Business or on Twitter at HJackMiller1.
Chances to
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Miller with Todd Cohen, and we are super excited to have the voice of Siri, Susan Bennett, with us. Susan, thanks again. Susan, I have a bunch of questions for you.
Yeah, Susan, this is a business show, so we're going to get down to business a little
first
bit.
First of all, how have you dealt with, like, I would imagine not too many people knew your name before it came out that you were the voice of Siri. How is this, like, fame? Like, you're a rock star. You're a superstar. How has this affected your life?
Well, I have to say that being accidentally famous, I like to call it, has been a real life lesson for me because, as I like to say, I was born a perfectionistic type A introvert. And so dealing with this has been a real lesson. And it's the reason that it took me 2 whole years to reveal myself as the voice of Siri. People go, what? What on earth? And I just couldn't decide what to do about the information because in the digital age, being anonymous is very much a positive thing for a voice talent, unless you're a major celebrity. And, of course, people are going to hire Susan Sarandon and Julia Roberts whenever they get the chance, John Hamm, et cetera. But if you're just a regular working voice talent, it's to your advantage for them not to know what you look like, where you're from, how old you are, all that sort of things, the things that they might judge you on rather than just hearing your voice. So most of us have our own studios at this point, those of us who work all the time. And so we can just sit in our little booth and we do, we can sound like this or we can sound like this. And, no one has to know anything about us except for that fact. And so very much like the TV show The Voice, the talent would be judged on their voice and their performance, not who they are and where they're from.
Right. Is your voice insured?
Not specifically.
So let me ask you a question. So you can sing, you can obviously talk, you have a lot of talents. Can you dance?
Of course.
So let me ask you a question. Have you been approached by Dancing with the Stars yet?
It's funny that you should say that because I'm including that in one of my my presentations about Siri. That so many people have fallen in love with this app, and they really think of her as a person, or at least a persona. And so I have a lot of fun with that. People will say, well, how come Siri gives me all these wrong directions? And I say, well, she does that on purpose. She's a jokester.
So if we can get you on Dancing with the Stars, would you go with it?
I really don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Okay, that's a good answer, because if you would have said yes too much, we would have lost our negotiating power.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay.
We got to play.
Okay,
we got to play.
We got to play it a little cool,
here.
but I'm going to work on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get to money, because that's everyone thinks that you're making a ton of money on Siri. But before that, this is election season, and I don't want to put you on the spot. But who are you liking for president?
Well, I lean towards Bernie Sanders. I don't know that he has much of a chance. But I like to think that I'm an independent. I'm basically disgusted by the whole process. I just, it's like reality TV has gotten into our politics, and it's just a mess. But that's about all I'll say about that. It's,
Okay.
everyone has an opinion, and mine is certainly no more important than anyone else's. So, I'd rather leave the politics out of this.
I like to take informal polls. And by the way, I think every one of us, or at least I'll speak for me, I'm disgusted with them all too. So I don't have tremendous hope for any of them. They all stink. Okay, so let's get to the money. So tell me, again, to what extent you're comfortable and you're not violating any, confidentiality clause, how you get paid in general for voiceover. And I know you're sitting on kegs and kegs of millions from Siri. I say that facetiously.
Right.
I say that
well,
facetiously because you told me the story. Because I think that's fascinating, some of the stuff you told me.
Right. I feel like your money that you make from Siri is when you ask Siri, what's 0 divided by 0?
Right. Well, there are no residuals in this type of work. It's, the digital voices, you basically, it's a work for hire, and you're paid an hourly rate. And I was paid well. And basically, I got into it because of my loyalty to a company that I have worked for over 20 years. And so that sort of colored my decision to do this type of work. But basically, we were paid well for the recordings that we did. I've been in touch with some of the other original series worldwide, and but none of us was ever compensated for the millions of devices that we were on. Now, all of the original voices were changed with the OS 7 system. So starting with the iPhone 5S, none of us original series are on the phone anymore. We were replaced because none of us had non-disclosure agreements with Apple. And corporations really love to have their digital voices anonymous. And those of us who were the original series were promoting ourselves as such, trying to reap some sort of benefit from having our voices be so ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And so consequently, the new series were paid some money, not to as a non-disclosure. But you will never find out who they are unless there's some, hack of Apple's financial doings, and I don't think that's very realistic.
So the bottom line, you didn't really make any big money on Siri. You just got a normal wage.
Exactly.
To do it. Now, do you make money like on the Delta or some? I think you told me there's a difference between, and I didn't really understand it, between some of your union jobs and non-union jobs, and some have residuals, some didn't. Maybe you can go into a little detail about that.
Well, non-union work, unfortunately, when the system was in place, now we're going back many years now, there was a fabulous system in place. We would have agents that, clients would go to, and they'd ask the agent, they'd say, okay, we're looking for this. Give us your top 5 or 10 people in this category. And then all of a sudden, there's a reasonable number of people that you're auditioning against, that you're competing with. And, the agent was in a position, for instance, I was exclusive with Atlanta Models and Talent for many years, and so they would push me. They'd say, well, this woman is fantastic. She takes direction well. She can do a lot of different voices. She shows up on time, all this stuff. And so you would have an advocate. You would have someone working for you. And then when you got the job, it would be on a union contract. You would get good money. You would get residuals. If they used your voice again, you would get paid again. And then all of that sort of fell apart with the advent of technology, and unfortunately made worse by a 6-month commercial strike by the unions at that time in the year 2000, which is ancient history for, I'm sure, some of your listeners. But it had a huge impact, technology and that strike. And so many people started, big, huge corporations that could easily afford union work are using non-union. And there's really no control over non-union work. As a freelancer, you can say, well, I'm not working for less than this, and they'll say, okay, well, I'll get the person who will. And so it's kind of, I like to say it's the voiceover Wild West at this point in time, because all the auditions that we do, and there are many, we have absolutely no way of knowing if they're even heard, because so many people are receiving them. And there are so many agencies and so many pay-to-play sites like Voice123 and Voices.com.
But
and everyone wants to get into voiceover these days. No one used to know what it was 5 years ago, but now it's just become this big thing, and it's just huge. Competitively,
I would think that your demand and your wages has gone up since it's been disclosed. You're the voice of Siri.
Well, I do have a fabulous agent in Los Angeles, Wes Stevens at Vox, and he is a fabulous negotiator, and he does get me great work. But one of two things, one of the reasons that it took me so long to reveal myself is I thought, well, this can go one of two ways. It can go, oh, wow, she's Siri, let's get her. Or, oh, she's Siri, oh, well, she's everywhere, let's not get her. And so, consequently, it's sort of gone the latter way in the sense that most people want to stereotype you.
Gotcha.
And so unless they take the time to go to your website or ask you for an audition of a different voice, they're going to say, oh, let's get her. We need kind of a robot voice. We need a virtual assistant voice, so let's get Susan Bennett. And so, I think that's a typical thing. It's a human nature.
Gotcha.
That, many times you'll watch, movies or TV programs and see the same character actor playing the same role. There's the woman that always kills her husband,
Susan, Susan,
it seems to be human nature to want to stereotype.
We only got 3 minutes left. Two quick things before we got to go, and I really appreciate your time. Number one, you're single?
No, I'm happily married.
Okay, good. I was going to try to fix you up. Well, okay, that's good. The other thing, and would appreciate if you could do this for a favor to me, would you publicly say, because I want to be able to use this for my wife, in your Siri voice, that Jack Miller loves Judy Miller. You've been the first and only love of my life. And that way I'll get some brownie points with my wife in your Siri voice.
Hello, Judy. This is Siri. I would like to say that Jack loves Judy more than anything else in the world, anyone else in the world, including Siri.
Susan, you are the absolute best. My wife's going to love it.
Susan, what's your dream job? Like, if you
we only got a minute left.
If you can get any voice job that there is out there, either real or fake, what would that be?
Oh, I would just love to have one that was recurring, like a broadcast thing, some sort of fabulous commercial.
You're going to get it. Everyone, Susan, I want everyone to check you out on Twitter at Seriously Susan. Your website is SusanCBennett.com. Susan, I can't thank you enough for being with us. You made my day. And by the way, I'm not going to reveal this to my wife right away, but when she hears that, I'm going to be like golden.
Is there anything in specific that you do, like before a performance or after, to rest your voice?
We got a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do rest my voice, but before a performance, I vocalize and drink tepid water, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Got it.
Susan, thank you very much. I hate to cut you short. I can go on forever.
Fascinating.
I'm getting like waves from the radio station here. Susan, you're the best. Thank you very much. I can't appreciate it. And everyone else, we'll be back right after traffic.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.